Solid Snake. The grizzled and battle-hardened soldier of impossible covert ops is the face of the Metal Gear series. Conceived by Hideo Kojima in the late 80s, he began as a video game character, but has since evolved into a legendary pop culture icon, known for his stealth, signature gear, and unwavering determination. But this is not Solid Snake. This is Zip Guy. And this is 3D Zip Guy. Hey everyone, 3D Zip Guy here. Welcome back. I have an exciting one for you today. In this video, we are building yet another fully articulated action figure. I'll walk you through the build step by step, maybe give you some tips, and even show how you can have my action figures printed in industrial resin without a 3D printer. Stay tuned for that. But what I'm not going to show you is my whole struggle through the painting process of this model. I'm just about done painting these parts for our build anyway. Although to be fair, while this figure requires a lot of coverage, I realize that the main reason why I am having such a hard time painting is not so much my hands, but because of my not so good eyesight. So I bought myself this Headband Magnifier lens. It probably isn't news to you, especially if you've been painting minis. This thing is absolutely essential, at least for me. Definitely way easier to paint now. Okay, I'm gonna stop rambling about this thing now before I accidentally turn this into a review. I've got affiliate links below if you want to check it out. A few important notes before we begin with the assembly. I printed these parts at 185%, roughly 1/6 scale, at 0.1 millimeter layer height. But if you want it at around 6.5 inches or 165 millimeters tall, just leave it at 100%. I use this dark gray PLA Plus 2.0 filament by Sunlu, which looks so beautiful, by the way. You can totally use a flesh tone color for the head if you wish, like this one, also from Sunlu. And like all Zip Guy figures, you need zip ties to assemble them. 3 millimeters by 150 millimeters and 4 millimeters by 150 millimeters for the default size. But for this scale, we are using 5 millimeters by 200 millimeters and 8 millimeters by 200 millimeters zip ties. And if you're wondering if this figure is printable in resin, the answer is yes, but only if you have the right resin for the crucial parts. And here's the proof. This is Zip Guy 2, which happens to be the base body of the figure we're building today. The joints of my figures go through a lot of stress because of how tight the zip ties need to be. So, if you can get your hands on some tough resin with little to no shrinkage, it should work. Choosing the right resin can be confusing. So, to take the guesswork out of it, I had my action figure parts printed in industrial resin over at JLC3DP.com, who also happens to be the sponsor of this video. Now I know a lot of you print mostly in PLA filament, and maybe like me, printing in resin is way beyond my comfort zone. That's exactly why I had my parts printed through JLC3DP. JLC3DP is an online 3D printing service specializing in rapid prototyping and low-volume production. They use high-end 3D printers to make custom parts from different materials, like plastic, resin, and even metal. Ordering is fairly straightforward. Go to JLC3DP.com. Upload your STL file. Choose your material, resin, plastic, metal, etc. Pick your finish, get an instant quote. Then they print and ship it, often within a few days. Super convenient if you need small batches of custom parts without much hassle. These parts were printed in white CBY resin. The details are crisp and even clearer after I sprayed it with a bit of gray primer. While there is almost zero shrinkage, there are still even better resins available. They recommended Lido 6060 resin and black resin, so I will be ordering prints using those two resins next time. I'll drop the full link to where you can order in the description below. Thank you JLC3DP for sponsoring this video. I truly appreciate it. Now let's get on with the mission. After painting all the parts, it is best if you put clear top coat on parts that might come into contact with one another to avoid paint chipping. Start by inserting a 5mm zip tie into the hole at the bottom of the heel, feeding it forward through the tunnel. Guide the zip tie under the toe bridge, then loop it back around toward the heel and insert the tip into the locking head. Use a pair of pliers or a stick to hold the head in place while you pull the zip tie tight. Once secured, trim off the excess. Next, attach the ankle donut joint with another zip tie through the heel. Loop through the donut, lock it, and pull snug. This joint carries the figure's weight, so make it firm. Once both feet are done, move on to the shin and knee. Insert a zip tie through the back of the knee, through the upper shin, then loop into the boot, back out to the upper shin and lock it. Shove the zip tie head into the upper shin while pinning it down with the knee. While holding the parts together, gently pull the zip tie and tighten it really hard. Cut off the excess zip tie. For the thigh connection, pass a zip tie from the thigh to the knee's upper bridge and back. Position the knee stubs into the thigh channels. Lock and trim. Do the same for both legs. Now, the hip joints. Insert the hip peg into the ratchet joint. You'll need a bit of force. This tool will help you apply even pressure on the peg, whether you're pressing it down with your body weight or hammering it down. I prefer using this clamp. Once in, snap the front covers on. Pop the hip joints into the thighs. Time to connect these to the hips. Take the pelvis block and insert a big zip tie into the rectangular cavity and out the lower slot. Bend the zip tie upwards and insert the tail into the slot right above it. Push the zip tie head but not all the way in. The whole of the zip tie head should be visible when viewed from above. Be careful not to pull the zip tie to avoid misaligning the holes. Insert the pelvis block into the pelvis frame. Insert a zip tie on both sides, starting from the slots above, closest to the pelvis block. Loop back up and lock them, but do not tighten. Leave a lot of space, enough to fit 2 fingers inside the zip tie loop. Insert the hip ratchet joints into the mid-channel of the pelvis and sandwich everything in place with the pelvis block. At this point, you can add a piece of masking tape to make the hips tighter. I used electrical tape on mine, but totally optional. Tighten all sides and trim the excess. Insert the outer pelvis over the whole pelvic assembly. Onto the arms. Zip tie through the forearm, loop through the hand donut and back, then feed it back into the forearm. Lock the zip tie, then bring the connected parts snugly together. Using a tool, press the zip tie head firmly into the recess inside the forearm, while gently tightening the loop. Once secured, trim off the excess tail as close to the head as possible. For the upper arm, zip tie through the shoulder, just below the bridge, thread it through the upper arm and into the front of the elbow. Then guide it back up toward the arm and out through the opening where the zip tie head is waiting. Lock it. Push the head down with a tool while gently tightening the zip tie. Make sure the orientation is correct. Cut off the excess as close as possible to the head. At the elbow, insert the peg with the nub facing inward. Using a pair of pliers, bend a zip tie just below the head. Insert it through the front of the elbow. As the tail exits from the bottom, position the head between the peg walls of the elbow. Lock the zip tie and tighten it firmly. Make sure the head is centered, then trim off the excess tail. Now we can attach the forearm to the elbow peg. Snap the shoulder clip onto the cylindrical bridge. Repeat for both arms. Now onto the torso. Insert 2 zip ties into the cavity, through each rectangular slots. The zip tie should loop back in. Lock, but don't tighten until the internal socket piece is in place. Once secured and tight, trim off the excess. Insert a bigger zip tie through the modified torso donut. Pass it into the chest cavity and out to the collar, then through the neck and around the neck peg donut. Make sure the ball of the neck peg is facing the back. Loop it back into the chest, lock and tighten really hard. Test the stiffness of the joint. This point will bear a lot of weight, so make sure the zip ties are fully tightened before trimming them off. Let's bring the torso assemblies together. Push the torso core into the midsection or abs. Position the belt onto the pelvis. Then pass the central zip tie into the core, then around the ball joint of the torso donut. Insert the zip tie back into the midsection and into the pelvis block. The zip tie should come out the rear exit. Tighten really hard while moving the upper torso. All right, the hard part's out of the way. Time to work on the arms. Wait, I almost forgot. Gotta attach these cute little pouches before they disappear on me. Now we can attach the arms, place the shoulder spacers, and pop the arms into the chest sockets. Moving up to the top, get a smaller zip tie and insert into the bottom hole of the head and out the back. Align the two headband tails together and have the zip tie pass through them and back to the head. Lock the zip tie but position everything before tightening. Use a tool if necessary. Trim the excess as close as possible. Finally, lock in the head and you're done. Let's go over the articulation. Head swivels left and right, can look down and up this much, hindered by his glorious tactical mullet. Tilts to the side about this far. Shoulders rotate 360 degrees. Shoulders can move up, down, forward, and back a bit, slightly hindered because of the straps. Arms can swivel up to the side that far. Bicep swivel. Double elbow. Wrist rotation. Hands move up and down and side to side a little bit. Torso can bend this far forward and this far back. The midsection is a floating piece, so you can move it around when bending the torso. The pelvis moves up and down, giving clearance for hip movement. Hips go up this far and can spread apart, thanks to the ratchet peg. There's the piece of tape I placed, by the way, to make it tighter. Thigh swivel, double knee, foot moves up, down, swivels side to side, toe articulation. For accessories, you got 2 pairs of extra hands and 2 weapons. Mission complete. Hit like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments who you want to see next. Files and links are in the description. Big thanks to JLC3DP, Sunlu, and all of you for watching.